For decades, Nashville has been fueled by whispers, stories so wild, so outrageous, that most fans refuse to believe them. But in country music, some rumors don't fade. They eventually explode into the truth. In this video, we uncover 10 old country music rumors that shockingly turned out to be real. Secrets once buried backstage, quietly confirmed years later. These aren't just tales. They're the hidden chapters that changed careers, destroyed relationships, and reshaped country music forever. Number 1. George Jones. The rumor that was never just a rumor. For years, the whispers around George Jones sounded too extreme to be real. Fans joked about his drinking, insiders hinted at chaos behind the curtain, and tabloids exaggerated every stumble. But as time passed, it became clear that the rumors weren't exaggerations. They were the closest thing to the truth the public had. The image Nashville built for him, a once-in-a-generation vocalist with a voice that could tear through the hardest heart, stood in painful contrast to the man fighting demons few fully understood. At the peak of his career, Jones was untouchable. His phrasing, his emotional control, his ability to turn a lyric into a confession made him a legend long before he reached middle age. But success only intensified the storm gathering around him. Those who toured with him described a life ruled by alcohol, unpredictable decisions, and long stretches where no one, not his band, not his management, not even his closest friends, knew whether he would show up. The infamous story of him riding a lawnmower to buy liquor wasn't a wild myth created to mock him. It was exactly what happened when every car was hidden, so he couldn't drive to the store. What made the truth heartbreaking wasn't the chaos, it was the desperation behind it. The more the rumors spread, the harder Jones tried to outrun them, plunging deeper into the addictions that nearly cost him everything. His marriage to Tammy Wynette, celebrated publicly as country music's royal pairing, crumbled under the pressure. Their private battles became the fuel for Nashville's rumor mill, each story more damaging than the last, many of them later confirmed through Wynette's own accounts. The man who could control a stage with a whisper could not control his life outside it. Eventually, Jones confronted the truth his fans had only guessed at. With age came clarity, and in interviews he openly admitted the severity of his addiction and the years he lost to it. Those confessions didn't erase the chaos, but they reshaped the rumors into something more human. He wasn't a caricature of self-destruction. He was a man drowning, fighting to surface. And yet, despite everything, his legacy endured untouched. The rumors that once threatened to overshadow his music became part of the story that defined him. A cautionary tale, a painful truth, and a reminder that genius and torment often share the same room. Johnny Cash, the rumor he couldn't run from. Long before Johnny Cash became the black-clad icon of American music, Nashville was already whispering about the battles he fought off stage. Fans saw the charisma, the deep baritone, the rebellious aura that made him a legend. But insiders knew a different story, one filled with pills, sleepless nights, and a growing darkness he tried to outrun. The early rumors about his addiction sounded exaggerated, even cruel, but every year that passed brought those whispers closer to the undeniable truth. At the height of his fame, Cash was unstoppable. He broke country music norms, shaking the conservative image Nashville relied on. His prison concerts turned him into a global phenomenon, and his songwriting carried a raw edge no one else dared to touch. But behind the success was a dependence on amphetamines and barbiturates that began quietly on long tours and soon spiraled beyond control. Band members later recalled nights when Cash was wired, restless, and unable to sleep for days. Rumors describing him as volatile, unpredictable, even dangerous, circulated through radio stations and record labels. And while fans dismissed most of it as typical celebrity gossip, the truth was emerging piece by piece. Cash's arrest in El Paso for carrying hundreds of pills didn't just confirm the talk, it blew the door wide open. The man branded as a rebel now had a legal record that matched the myth. His marriage collapsed under the pressure, friendships shattered, and his career stumbled as addiction tightened its grip. Nashville, once fascinated with his edge, now questioned whether he had become a liability. But the rumor mill only captured part of the story. The turning point came through his own honesty. In later interviews, Cash admitted openly that the darkest years of his life were worse than the public ever knew. The road accidents, the fires he caused while high, the physical collapse. These weren't myths created by tabloids, but moments he carried with him long after he recovered. His vulnerability turned speculation into truth, and truth into something far more powerful than scandal. The resurrection of his career after defeating addiction became one of country music's most remarkable redemptions. Cash proved that the rumors didn't define him. They exposed the cost of genius lived too close to the edge. And in the end, the honesty he offered the world became just as legendary as the voice that first made him famous. Hank Williams Sr., the rumor that foreshadowed a tragedy. Long before country music crowned him its first great tragic hero, Hank Williams Sr. lived under a cloud of rumors that trailed him everywhere he performed. To fans, he was the voice of heartbreak, raw, trembling, unforgettable. But inside the industry, managers, musicians, and venue owners whispered that his health and behavior were spiraling long before the world realized it. The stories sounded exaggerated, even unfair, but as time passed, almost every rumor proved to be grounded in reality. At the height of his career, Williams was unstoppable. His songs cut straight into the core of American life, and his rapid rise reshaped the entire genre. Yet behind his success was an escalating dependency on alcohol and painkillers that no one in Nashville knew how to address. Back problems from spina bifida left him in constant physical pain, and a toxic combination of morphine and liquor became his escape. Rumors of him missing shows, slurring lyrics on stage, or collapsing backstage spread quickly among promoters. Some believed them. Others argued they were just attempts to tear down the brightest star in the business. But the truth was always worse than what circulated publicly. Bandmates later revealed the difficulty of keeping Williams functioning on tour, long nights fueled by pills, unpredictable emotional swings, and mornings where he couldn't stand long enough to rehearse. Managers tried to protect his image, canceling shows quietly and blaming illness. But insiders knew the real reason. The addiction was consuming him. The Grand Ole Opry famously fired him, confirming what the rumor mill had said for years. Hank Williams Sr. was becoming a risk they could no longer control. As his dependency deepened, the rumors shifted from behavior to darker predictions. Whispered conversations about whether he could survive another year followed him across every state line. Tragically, those fears became reality. When he was found dead in the back of a Cadillac on New Year's Day 1953, the world learned that the whispers about his health and addiction were not cruel fabrications. They were warnings no one wanted to acknowledge. What makes Williams' story so haunting is not that the rumors were true, but that they were never taken seriously until it was too late. His death cemented the mythology, turning whispers into a legacy of caution. His brilliance shaped the future of country music, but the truth behind the rumors added a shadow that never faded. In the end, Hank Williams Sr. became the first great reminder that talent can dazzle the world while the person behind it slowly disappears. 4. Glen Campbell, the rumor that revealed the price of fame. For much of his career, Glen Campbell was the industry's golden figure, the clean-cut superstar whose smile, musical precision, and crossover charm made him one of the most recognizable performers in America. But even at his brightest, Nashville buzzed with rumors about a darker private life. Stories of alcohol-fueled breakdowns, volatile relationships, and a growing dependence on cocaine circulated quietly, dismissed by fans who couldn't imagine the beloved rhinestone cowboy living in chaos. Yet years later, nearly every whispered warning proved painfully true. Campbell's rise to fame had been meteoric. As a session musician in the legendary Wrecking Crew, he played on hundreds of iconic recordings before stepping into the spotlight himself. His success seemed effortless, but the pressures behind it were relentless. Touring, television, and constant public expectations left little room for stability. Bandmates began noticing mood swings, erratic decisions, and stretches where Campbell seemed to teeter between control and collapse. Rumors of hard partying followed him from city to city, fueled by late-night stories from musicians who witnessed moments the public never saw. At first, most of these rumors were brushed aside. Campbell's polished TV appearances and radio-friendly charm didn't match the image of someone battling addiction. But the veneer cracked as his relationship with Tanya Tucker exploded into tabloid drama. Their romance, intense, turbulent, and short-lived, confirmed suspicions that Campbell's personal life was far less stable than his public persona suggested. Reports of fights, emotional volatility, and substance abuse submerged the couple in controversy, turning industry whispers into national headlines. The truth eventually emerged through Campbell himself. In interviews later in life, he openly admitted the severity of his cocaine addiction and alcoholism. He described periods where he lost entire days, made decisions he couldn't remember, and pushed away people who tried to help him. His confessions revealed that the wildest rumors, once seen as exaggerated attacks, barely scratched the surface of the reality he was living. Yet Campbell's story didn't end in destruction. He fought his way back, rebuilding relationships, stabilizing his life, and returning to music with clarity and humility. Even as Alzheimer's later claimed his memory, his courage in documenting the disease publicly turned him into a different kind of icon, one no longer defined by rumors, but by honesty and grace. In the end, Glen Campbell's truth became more powerful than the whispers that chased him. The rumors weren't just stories. They were the shadows cast by a man struggling under the weight of extraordinary talent and extraordinary pain. Tammy Wynette, the rumor that exposed the reality behind the country queen. For decades, Tammy Wynette's life was wrapped in a shimmering mythology, America's first lady of country music, the golden voice of heartbreak, and the woman behind one of the genre's most defining songs, Stand By Your Man. But beneath the glamour and carefully crafted image lay a series of rumors that followed her from stage to stage. Stories of a troubled marriage, unexplained injuries, sudden disappearances, and a private life far more chaotic than fans ever realized. For years, many dismissed these stories as tabloids exploiting a sensitive star. Then, the truth began to surface. At the peak of her career, Wynette projected strength, poise, and emotional control. Her voice carried a weight that made every line feel lived in, but few understood how much pain she was carrying behind the scenes. Her marriage to George Jones, celebrated publicly as country music's royal union, became the center of the industry's rumor mill. Insiders whispered that their relationship, far from being a fairy tale, was unraveling under the weight of Jones's gambling, alcoholism, and Wynette's own battles with health and emotional turmoil. Managers and musicians tried to bury the stories, but Wynette's frequent hospitalizations and canceled appearances only intensified speculation. The turning point came when Wynette published her autobiography, revealing truths that were far darker than even the wildest rumors suggested. She described nights of fear, instances of violence, and moments when she fled their home for safety. She detailed Jones's unpredictable behavior, her struggles to keep her career intact, and the toll their marriage took on her physical and emotional health. The book didn't just confirm the rumors, it reframed them, showing that many of the whispered stories had been watered-down versions of a harsher reality. Yet, the drama didn't end with the divorce. Years later, Wynette's mysterious abduction claim sparked another wave of rumors. She reported being kidnapped at gunpoint, beaten, and abandoned. But inconsistencies in her story led to speculation that the truth was far more complicated. Although never definitively resolved, the incident added another layer of shadows around her life, blurring the line between victimhood, trauma, and secrecy. In her final years, Wynette's health deteriorated, leaving behind a trail of medical records, unanswered questions, and a legacy tinted with pain. But through every storm, her voice remained untouched, a reminder of the resilience that made her an icon. In the end, Tammy Wynette didn't just live through the rumors, she embodied the heartbreak she sang about. And when the truth emerged, it revealed a woman far stronger and far more human than the myth Nashville spent decades protecting. Sauce. Loretta Lynn, the rumor that unmasked a turbulent marriage. For most of her career, Loretta Lynn appeared invincible, an outspoken trailblazer who sang about women's struggles with a bravery Nashville had never witnessed before. But behind the anthems of empowerment and defiance were decades of rumors about a marriage that was far more volatile than the public ever grasped. Fans saw her as a symbol of independence. Insiders whispered that her private life was anything but free. And in time, Lynn herself revealed that those whispers were far closer to the truth than anyone imagined. From the outside, her union with Oliver Doolittle Lynn looked like the classic country love story, a young couple beating the odds and building a life from nothing. But as her fame grew, so did the rumors. Musicians on tour quietly spoke of heated arguments, sudden emotional outbursts, and long stretches where Loretta seemed drained by more than just the demands of her career. Fans speculated about infidelity, jealousy, and tempers that clashed like steel. Yet for years, no one knew how much of it was real. The truth emerged in Loretta's own memoirs, where she dismantled the mythology around her marriage with startling candor. She admitted that Doolittle was both the love of her life and the source of some of her deepest wounds. She described instances of physical altercations, emotional turmoil, and the constant strain of balancing marriage with stardom. The rumors of Doolittle's drinking and wandering eye, once dismissed as petty gossip, matched the reality she openly acknowledged. Her words didn't expose a villain. They revealed a marriage built on passion, volatility, and resilience. A relationship as fragile as it was fierce. What made the revelation so powerful was Lynn's refusal to paint herself as a victim. Instead, she framed the turbulence as part of her journey, fuel for the honesty in her songwriting. Songs like Don't Come Home A-Drinkin' and You Ain't Woman Enough weren't crafted narratives. They were reflections of her lived experience, shaped by nights of frustration, arguments slammed behind closed doors, and a love that often teetered on collapse. The rumors hadn't exaggerated her life. They had only captured pieces of a larger, more complicated truth. In her later years, Loretta spoke with tenderness about Doolittle, recalling both the pain and the loyalty that anchored their life together. By then, the rumors had transformed into a deeper understanding. She had survived and created in spite of the chaos, not because it was hidden. Loretta Lynn's truth didn't tarnish her legacy. It fortified it. She became proof that strength isn't born from perfection, but from the storms we learn to endure. Bay, Willie Nelson, the rumor that finally came true. For decades, Willie Nelson lived in a space between myth and reality, a wandering outlaw poet whose gentle smile and easy humor made him one of country music's most beloved figures. But even during his most celebrated years, Nashville buzzed with rumors about a tangled personal life that didn't quite match his peaceful public persona. Fans heard whispers about overlapping relationships, hidden heartbreaks, and a secret family that had existed long before fame elevated him to legend. And for years, those rumors sounded too dramatic to be true, until Nelson himself confirmed them. At the height of the outlaw country movement, Nelson represented freedom in its purest form. His songwriting was emotional without being bitter, rebellious without being destructive. But behind the stage lights was a complicated web of marriages, affairs, and emotional entanglements that insiders had been quietly discussing for years. Tour staff recalled moments where his romantic life seemed impossibly intertwined, with unexpected phone calls, tense backstage encounters, and situations that fueled the speculation even more. The rumor that stayed alive the longest was the one the public struggled most to believe. The existence of a daughter Nelson had kept private for decades. It floated around the industry as a whisper, something brought up jokingly in late-night green rooms, but never confirmed. And then, in a moment that stunned longtime fans, Nelson revealed in his memoir that the rumor was not only real, it had been true for most of his adult life. His daughter, Renee, had discovered the truth through her mother's diary, leading to a reunion that reframed everything the industry thought it knew about him. The revelation didn't come with scandal or denial. It came with the humility and warmth Nelson had carried throughout his life. But behind his calm confession was the confirmation of a deeply human flaw. A man moving too fast, loving too intensely, and leaving pieces of his life scattered behind him as fame accelerated every corner he turned. The rumor that once seemed like an outrageous invention was, in reality, one of the most intimate and fragile truths of his story. And it wasn't the only rumor to resurface. His tax troubles in the early 1990s, once dismissed by fans as exaggerated gossip, became national news when authorities seized his assets. His easygoing image was suddenly overshadowed by the brutal reality of poor financial advice and astronomical debt. Again, the rumors had been warning signs, the quiet smoke before a very public fire. Yet none of it diminished Nelson's legacy. If anything, the truth humanized him further. His openness, His willingness to confront his past and his ability to laugh at the chaos kept him beloved through every storm. In the end, Willie Nelson didn't outrun the rumors, he outlived them, turning whispered stories into chapters of a life lived fully, imperfectly, and without regret. 8. Patsy Cline, the rumor that haunted her final days. Patsy Cline was more than a country star. She was a force of nature, a voice that carried raw emotion with a precision few singers could match. At the height of her fame, she seemed unstoppable. But beneath her polished public image circulated persistent rumors about her private struggles, fears, and a growing sense of foreboding that shadowed her final months. Fans dismissed these whispers as dramatic speculation. Insiders, however, knew they weren't just stories. They were warnings that Patsy herself couldn't ignore. Her rise had been breathtaking. In a male-dominated industry, Cline carved out a space entirely through talent and grit. She transcended country music, commanding pop charts and national television with a confidence that made her unforgettable. Yet, behind that steel exterior was a woman who had survived more than the public ever knew, including a devastating near-fatal car crash in 1961. Rumors swirled that she never fully recovered emotionally, that the brush with death had awakened a persistent anxiety she tried to keep hidden. As she returned to touring, fellow musicians quietly spoke of Cline's eerie premonitions. Late-night conversations where she mentioned feeling something dark approaching, or her belief that she wouldn't live to see old age. These whispers grew louder when she reportedly told close friends that she felt she was living on borrowed time. The rumors sounded supernatural to fans, but those closest to her insisted she carried a lingering sense of dread from the accident, a fear that never left her. In the months leading to her fatal flight in 1963, Cline's schedule became relentless. Despite the exhaustion and turbulent weather patterns she often worried about, she pressed on, determined to keep pushing her career to new heights. Industry insiders later revealed that she had turned down several invitations to fly before finally accepting the trip that would end her life. Rumors that she sensed danger weren't exaggerations. They were reflections of her own words, shared among friends who later recounted her unease. When the plane crashed outside Camden, Tennessee, everything the rumor mill had whispered felt chillingly validated. Her death didn't just shock the country world, it cemented the eerie stories that had followed her. For many, it felt as though Patsy had been trying to outrun a fate she somehow saw coming. Yet her legacy didn't fade into tragedy. Her voice, preserved in every recording, became a monument to resilience, artistry, and a life lived boldly despite fear. The rumors that once seemed like superstition ultimately revealed a deeper truth. Patsy Cline carried an intuition as powerful as her talent, and the world felt the weight of it the moment she was gone. Dean. Merle Haggard, the rumor that followed him from prison to fame. Long before Merle Haggard became one of country music's greatest storytellers, rumors followed him like a shadow. Fans knew pieces of his past, whispers about prison time, violence, and a youth spent running from the law. But for years, much of what circulated sounded too extreme to be believed. In an industry built on image, the idea that one of its future legends had once been an inmate seemed more like outlaw mythology than fact. Yet as Haggard's career soared, the truth behind the rumors proved even more dramatic than the stories themselves. Haggard's transformation from convict to country star is one of the most extraordinary arcs in American music. But behind the redemption was a darker early life, shaped by poverty, instability, and an escalating pattern of crime. Long before he ever stepped onto a stage, Haggard was known in California law enforcement circles as a chronic runaway, a thief, and eventually, a dangerous inmate. Rumors that he had spent time in San Quentin were initially dismissed by fans as media exaggeration, but they were entirely true. Not only had Haggard served time there, he had been present during Johnny Cash's iconic 1959 concert inside the prison walls, a moment that shifted the trajectory of his life. Inside San Quentin, the rumors grew darker. Fellow inmates later revealed stories of Haggard's attempted escape, detailing how he had once plotted to break free with a group of hardened criminals before the plan unraveled. These tales seemed sensational until Haggard confirmed them himself decades later. He admitted that he had been close to spiraling into a life sentence, and that only a stern warning from a death row inmate, someone he admired and feared, forced him to reassess his path. When Haggard emerged from prison, the industry didn't know what to make of him. Early in his career, labels tried to suppress his criminal background, fearing it would destroy his chances. But rumors persisted, carried by musicians who recognized the authenticity in his songwriting. When he finally addressed the stories publicly, the effect was electric. The rumors weren't just true. They were foundational to the man he had become. His music, gritty, honest, and deeply human, reflected those truths. Songs like Mama Tried and Sing Me Back Home weren't crafted narratives. They were lived experiences. The rumors no longer served as scandal. They became integral to his legend, proof of a life shaped by hardship and redemption. Merle Haggard's story wasn't about outrunning his past. It was about owning it. The rumors that once threatened to define him instead amplified his legacy, turning a troubled youth into one of the most powerful comeback stories in country history. Number 10. Conway Twitty, the rumor that refused to stay buried. Conway Twitty projected an image of absolute smoothness, polished vocals, effortless charm, and a seemingly spotless reputation that made him one of Nashville's most trusted stars. To the public, he was the gentleman crooner who never stepped out of line. But throughout his career, faint rumors followed him, whispers of a complicated family life, secret tensions behind the scenes, and financial arrangements no one quite understood. For years, fans dismissed these stories as idle gossip. But the moment Twitty passed away in 1993, those rumors came crashing into the public eye, and many of them proved shockingly real. By every measure, Twitty was unstoppable. More than 50 #1 hits, success in both rock and roll and country, and a stage presence so consistent that even industry insiders couldn't imagine chaos lurking beneath the surface. But those who worked closest to him noticed cracks in the facade, strained relationships with some of his children, disputes about how his businesses were being managed, and decisions that left his inner circle confused or resentful. Because Twitty was intensely private, none of these questions ever reached the public, at least not while he was alive. Everything changed after his death. Almost overnight, his family was thrown into one of the most explosive legal battles country music had ever seen. Twitty's children alleged that major parts of his estate had been transferred away from the family through unclear financial documents he signed late in life. They claimed that certain close associates had gained control of businesses, properties, and assets that rightfully belonged to his heirs. What had once been quiet industry whispers now became court filings, national headlines, and testimony under oath. The rumors weren't rumors anymore. They were official legal disputes, unfolding in front of millions. The scandal didn't paint Twitty as a villain. Instead, it revealed how deeply his dedication to work had overshadowed everything else. He had built an empire, restaurants, properties, touring companies, but trusted others to handle the details. The same relentless drive that made him a titan of country music left little space for examining the consequences of those arrangements at home. The rumors about his secret life weren't about betrayal. They were about a man whose career grew faster than he could manage. Looking back, the truth about Conway Twitty didn't diminish his legacy. It humanized it. The courtroom battles, the fractured family ties, the whispered stories, all of them reflected the cost of a life lived almost entirely under stage lights. And when the truth finally surfaced, it didn't tarnish his greatness. It simply revealed the man behind the legend. Extraordinary on stage, but painfully imperfect behind closed doors. If you want, I can now write the outro for the full video, or prepare the description, plus tags, hashtags, thumbnail text for your uploaded title.